Nice to meet you, Garry.
Yeah, good to see you. And we've used the technologies at our disposal. We couldn't get laptops to work, but there you are on an iPhone, all facilitated by digital infrastructure. So it works.
Absolutely, no latency.
No latency issues right here. So listen, it's about you. We'd love to hear how you arrived in the position you've arrived in Digital Realty. Obviously, that's the company you're with now. But did you wake up one day, 16, and said, I want to be designing, building, and operating digital infrastructure?
No, that wasn't quite the sentence on my lips when I was leaving school. So it's been an interesting pathway from there to my current role, which is senior delivery manager in the EMEA region. So effectively, I went and did a university degree in the University of Limerick in Ireland, which was the degree in quantity surveying. From there, I moved to Dublin to commence working with a consultancy. Unfortunately, that was in the 2008 timeframe, and the GFC had just hit Ireland. So the work quickly dried up, and I made the decision to move over to Australia. Luckily, Australia is quite a fortunate country in that there's a huge volume of work going on there, and there has been for the past 20 or 30 years. And I quickly found work there with a consultancy QS in Brisbane. Worked there for 5 years. Then made my way down to Sydney to join a quantity surveying firm down there and create their project management division. And we grew that. It was a startup from an Irish business that were based in Dublin that were creating their Asia Pacific or establishing their Asia Pacific arm. So we started up with two of us in 2015, and that was 2013. And by the time I was moving on to Digital Realty in 2017, we'd built it up to about 30 people.
Hmm.
Uh, the move from consultancy to Digital Realty was driven primarily in the growth that we could see in the sector that was unfolding at that time. And today we see the same in the data center industry. The growth is just phenomenal. And it is the result of everybody can see it in their daily lives how IT and the cloud and everything is becoming digitized. And as all your daily tasks become digitized, you need somewhere for that information to be stored and processed, which has led the basis of the DC development.
Would you be surprised, wouldn't you, Seamus? And I'm sure you find it yourself where you're trying to explain to people that all that they do on the cloud is actually just the brand name for a data center. We've a ways to go yet before people actually connect the infrastructure that you're building to their health services and the banking services and everything else that they're doing daily. It's that transition
Uh,
we're going through. Do you find that?
Absolutely, and the cloud is a great generic term
Yeah.
that people think is exotic. It's not quite as exotic when we explain that it's simply stored in a concrete shell in the suburbs of most of our cities.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting as well when you speak to policymakers and the likes around the world, and even journalists, etc. That sure, all these data center problems will go away because they're going to be replaced by the cloud, and it's a common enough comment that I hear back. So let's go back a little bit. It's often said that quantity surveyors are the accountants of the construction industry, but obviously they're an awful lot more than that. And for young people and middle term people and people who are looking at careers and that, what do you think makes ultimately a really good project manager, quantity surveyor, in your experience, now that you've seen it from geographic different locations and nearly 15 years, if not more, on working in the environment that you are working in?
Yeah, effectively, you need to have a balanced approach to your topics, and also how you deal with people. The fundamentals of quantity surveying and project management are quite generic. However, once you get out into the industry, it's one thing to be able to show someone that their project is going to cost X, but it's another thing to influence them and put them in the right direction so that you can get the result that they want from a design standpoint, but also do it in a cost-effective manner.
Mhm.
And then that expands broadly as you go from talking about the numbers to actually delivering the projects.
And it's that experience, Shane. Is it a bit like knowing how something works in theory, and then the real world? This project would be so easy if we didn't have people involved. You know?
Correct, and that is the key point. That's the balance, and I think that's one aspect that we get from the baseline as operating as the QS is that
Yes.
you see everyone's opinion and everyone's view, and you can appreciate why an architect wants it to look a certain way and an engineer wants it to function a certain way. The
Mm.
the end client might want it to have a blend of both. Uh, but you also then have to consider, you have to pay for it as well and make the return for the business. Uh, so from the early days, you begin to get an inkling as a QS, and as you go further into your career, you begin to become a balancing act as such, in that you're trying to help the project forward, but also having to maintain professional advice to ensure that uh, everyone is well aware of where the project status sits.
You
And
sound
then that, yeah,
you sound as if you end up being like the United Nations of every project. You've so many.
effectively, yeah, and that's that role then as you progress through, and project management is a natural evolution from QSing.
Hmm.
Uh, that's the ultimate requirement as a delivery manager is providing the balancing platform to move the project forward.
And
And yeah,
what do you love and what do you not love so much? What's
so the key to this job, well, the personal likes for me is the dynamic nature and fluid nature of the job. You have no 2 days the same. Um, today I'm arriving, I'm sitting in a site office, and we quickly have to address a design issue we have that's going to have program implications, and that's going to require workshopping to resolve. Tomorrow will be a completely different task where it may be looking at engineering guidelines to move forward on a long-term basis to provide structure and have a very structured approach. And that's the basis of construction is that it's a very fluid environment. You have a very structured process in your designs and your engineering, but when you get to site, you can encounter issues that become not so structured and require a lot of uh, variable input to address and ultimately get a resolution to move forward.
and it's one of the things that's coming across very strongly as I speak to young talented people like yourself is that the knowledge is one thing, but the application of the knowledge, the human, emotional intelligence, having played team sports, that usually is help because fellas get a sense of how to play in a team. We all want to score the goal, but somebody has to be in goal. You have a really interesting perspective on this next question, which is geographies. You've been obviously in Australia long enough, or were there long enough to see differences and similarities between peoples, their approaches, and all the rest of it. Are we all the same from your perspective?
So to give some background on this, I was 15 years in Australia,
Yeah.
and 6 of those years I was working on digital realty projects, and 4 of those years in a regional role. So that
Right.
encompassed sites that we had in Singapore, Japan, India, South Korea. So a very broad base to encounter different dynamics, uh, different ways of living, and some very culturally different people.
Yeah.
However, when it boils down to it, construction is still very similar. Projects are still projects, and they still need to be delivered. And ultimately speaking, my experience is that yes, people are the same. That there may be cultural differences.
Yeah.
However, that's a personal baseline, and you have to be very respectful of that, and of people's sensitivities. But at the same time, from a professional standpoint, if you can manage that, it is very much a similar environment to progress and ultimately get the job done.
One of the things I'm often told by people who have worked the APAC region, having worked in Europe or EMEA, is you understand scale in terms of distances. You look at the Pacific and you say, it'll only take me X amount of hours to get, and then you realize that you're in a plane for 9 hours just to go across parts of water. Did you find that scale? I mean, obviously Australia is big in itself. The scale, I mean, we're in Ireland, you can get anywhere in what, 3 hours, I guess?
Yeah, correct. The scale is quite impressive. If I take, for example, this morning I was on a 2 hour flight from Dublin to Frankfurt. 2 hours will get you to most of our metro locations in Europe. Whereas when I was based in Sydney, it would take a minimum of 8 hours to get from Sydney to our next geographical location under Singapore, and then 10 or 14 hours if you're talking about Japan or India. So it is a huge scale. The cities over there are on another level. 20 million isn't a big number for a city in the APAC region. Yeah. And yeah, it is thoroughly impressive, and it's also quite interesting in that they're only in the middle of their data center development journey. So there's huge opportunities in that region, and there is a requirement for labor to get the work done, and for young professionals to do it, and also a fantastic opportunity there for people to travel if that's on their priority list.
It's one of the things, and it's been short and sharp, but it's one of the things that we're finding with these interviews as well is it's great, Seamus, that you've come back to Ireland after being away for 15 years, but the option was there to come back and fulfill your career and whatever else. And we're finding that unlike in previous generations where they had to leave and they left forever, there is definitely more opportunities for people either to return or to stay here. And we've got people working in Denmark and Luala and all over the world for 6 months secondment. It's great to see the Irish doing so well, and you're a great case in point of that. So I thank you for your time. I know you're in the middle of a project in, as you say, Frankfurt. So with that, I'll thank you. Congrats on your career so far. We could have gone into any one of those areas that you mentioned, particularly the 2008 to 29 crash. That would be, you got an MBA in how the world works right there.
Well, I think it may have been a bit of a bad mark in some respects, because you turn into a bit of a pessimist sometimes when really you should be more. I found the general world to be a bit more optimistic, but that leaves us as a safe pair of hands with budget.
Exactly. So excellent chat. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with the rest of your career, but you've had a great one today. So well done.